Matej Ďurčo. He is responsible for sustaining the infrastructure in the Digital Humanities Center at the Academy of Science. He works a long time with the project DARIAH and CLARIN, and have a lot of insights in infrastructure and these projects on a European level. And I'm very curious of his talk. The stage is yours.
More or less, I'm going to give a bit of an overview of the landscape within the DH with respect to data management, but also, kind of the broader perspective with the research infrastructures in EU and so on. Okay, so and I will try to be brief. So this will be my index. So going from the motivation, which I think is preaching to the choir, but then giving the idea of the kind of Austrian initiatives or consortia or groups that are dealing with this. Then the European context with the research infrastructures and infrastructures, especially the buzzword EOSC, the European Open Science Cloud, and the implication, so to say, or the translation of these general ideas in the Austrian context, and then giving maybe a few slides on the kind of specific example of ARCHE, which is the repository deal provided by Austrian Academy of Sciences by the Austrian Centre for Digital Humanities and Cultural Heritage, where I'm located. Okay, I think I can be rather quick here. We know all of this, right? So why would we do the data management? It's kind of obvious. And I think I will be more or less concentrating in my talk about on the aspect of the on the findability. So yes, we need repositories to store the data, but how to make sure that they get found so that they can be reused, right? So we have these FAIR principles: findable, accessible, interoperable, reusable. And I would say the FAI is mainly kind of is precondition to the R. So you can only reuse it if you can find it and it's accessible and it's interoperable. And I think many of the slides on my side will now concentrate on the findability aspect and the kind of, so in the other words, so once the data is in the repository, how it can be spread, disseminated so that others can reuse it. Okay, then the context we as institute are dealing with within mostly is, on the one hand, is the CLARIAH-AT, so that would be the national consortium for the ERICS, CLARIN and DARIAH. There is, and next to it or above or below that, if you wish, is the DHA, which is the community of digital humanities in Austria. So the CLARIAH-AT is really a consortium of institutional partners, and they coordinate activities and disseminate activities within the bigger, so the digital humanities Austria probably is constituted mostly by the DHA mailing list, which is around 300 members. So these are individual persons who are the DH community within Austria, and CLARIAH-AT are the 8 or so national partners. And maybe to highlight here would be the projects CONDE and DITA, the HRSM projects, which in my understanding are meant to ensure cohesion between the players in DH in Austria. So CLARIAH-AT is the national consortium, as said. The speaker is currently Walter Scholger from University of Graz, and the national coordinator of this consortia is Charlie Mert, my colleague from the academy. And these are the current partners: the universities, the National Library, the Austrian Academy of Sciences, and yeah. And it's open to new candidates, new partners if wished, but there is a price tag to that. Then on the okay, so the DHA or the CLARIAH-AT has been working on along or based on the strategy for DH, or digital humanities, proposed in 2004 or devised in 2014-15. The publication was, I think, 2015. And this strategy got, well, we got quite a long way, I would say, but some things we obviously did not solve. And there is a 2021, so that this year we have created an update of this strategy. Oh, sorry, I didn't put a link there, but I will add that to there. And but basically, if you look for DHA strategy, you should be able to find it. This is published by the on the GAMS server of Graz. Anyhow, so the update of this strategy has 4 major areas. And I think the one that mostly caters to the discussion we have here will be the second one, the research data and repositories. And I will come to certain aspects of that a bit later. But all in all, there are kind of obvious candidates or usual suspects on the kind of top level themes on or groups or areas. On the one hand is the research infrastructures, the networking aspect, bringing together, right? So that's one of the main things. So we need to talk to each other. And there is the S3 consortia, like CLARIN and DARIAH, are our motherships. That's given. But there is a big focus now also in the cooperation with the GLAM institutions or memory institutions, so museums, archives, libraries, and so on. And I mean, this all is interconnected, right? So on the one hand, I need to networking with the various stakeholders. On the one hand, on the other hand, I need to have repositories and ways for the data and ways to find the data, the registries. But then I need various methods and tools to be able to do something with the data. Yeah, so this is also intertwined. And all of this doesn't make much sense if I'm not able to get out the word to the community. So we always considered since the beginning, since many years, this knowledge sharing or training or whatever you call it, outreach, a crucial part, a pillar of our work in the DH, because you can have the best services, but if nobody knows about them and nobody knows how to use them, they are useless. So this aspect of kind of preaching or well, getting out the word and saying what we have and how you can use it is a very important part of our work within the institute, and also one of the core kind of 4 areas in the DHA strategy. And given that many universities or multiple universities are involved here, so the idea then it translates to the DH curricula and the teaching there. And so how can I, for example, kind of convey the methods developed within the DH in the curricula, in the courses, or make the data that is available usable in the courses or in the teaching. Okay, I'm afraid I will be arguing with the time. Okay, try to be a bit more faster. Yeah, the one aspect is, so just to say that I think within the last years, CLARIAH-AT, through various CLARIAH-AT funded projects, but also through the Go Digital programs, which were meant for as digitalization initiatives, there was quite a surge, I would say, of projects within DH that, well, rather small, but each of them contributed a bit, and along the lines, along the kind of best practices that we foresee for DH, that would be the digitization, the making available of the data, open data or principles or FAIR principles. Yeah, so I think over the last years, CLARIAH-AT did quite a contribution here by funding many projects, which create a mosaic of and each of them produce data that can be reused. And as I said before, the other aspect is the knowledge transfer, so that there is the data and how to make it available. I won't go into detail, but there are many activities, both in the teaching and also through various workshops and lectures and conferences, where the outcomes or the progress is being conveyed and communicated or discussed within the community. I think so. Yeah, the latest was a bit problematic, but I think at the 2018 or so there were more than 100 persons or 150 persons at the DHG conference. So quite a lively community. Okay, I also need to, I think, mention. Oh, I'm already out of time. The broader context, which would be the EOSC, which also Heimo mentioned. The research infrastructures, they have been there for years, CLARIN and DARIAH. There is also the old kids on the block like OpenAir and Europeana, and the new kids on the block, New Kid on the Block in Digital Europe program, a new funding program for digital technology. Okay, I leave it at that at the moment. We have to kind of move on a bit faster, I'm afraid. The EOSC was mentioned en passant by Heimo. This is quite a, well, it's a bit of a buzzword, but I think it's also already quite a few €100 million went into this through the various preparatory build-out projects. So my feeling is that this is on the level of the European Commission quite an important thing. So, and the idea is to have a kind of all-encompassing environment for hosting and processing research data to support EU science. That's the tagline. It has a lot of details and implications and problems, obviously, but I think it is here to stay, and it is important, will become, or is already becoming, an important aspect of the researchers. Well, I'm not sure if daily life, but definitely one has to be aware of that. One kind of the most prominent or kind of from the point of view of the users or of the researchers, relevant outcomes at the moment of the EOSC is the EOSC marketplace, which is at the end, at some point when it's full-fledged, meant as the kind of the place to go for everything that is the kind of for hosting and processing research data. I am the first to criticize this. I mean, after years of and millions of euros to invest into that, this marketplace has 311 services. So probably one could do better. I guess there is more services within the EU than this, but well, it's a big thing and it's moving obviously as correspondingly slowly. But I still would subscribe to the idea, right? So I think we have to be patient there. It is meant in the end as for all kinds of services, but it has a strong bias currently to the services, which services means partly also kind of higher. I want to have a virtual machine to run a service. So it's very infrastructure biased, so to say. And I would feel like at the moment, a normal researcher, a humanities researcher would feel quite lost at this marketplace, but let's see where it evolves. The EOSC is talking about resources in general, and so the idea is that also data sets, and so we kind of got another attempt to cataloging everything. I'm not sure how far, well, how successful they will be, but let's see. Important thing is the relation to the OpenAir, which is kind of, and if I understand correctly, there will be something like a merge or integration, or there certainly will be some relation between this EOSC marketplace and OpenAir, which I would expect you know or heard about, which is the kind of the biggest aggregator, to my knowledge, in the EU of so-called research outcomes. So there is software, there is publications, there is data sets, everything. At the moment, 59 million kind of items collected from a few thousand of providers. So this is kind of the, well, the place to go, or at least the place to see and try out. I would be interested to hear if you kind of found something interesting there, because it's kind of very broad, obviously, right? 59 is a lot, 59 million. But is there something for you there? And is there some useful information actually? well, to be discussed, because when you have such a kind of a broad collection, the quality and the detail of data of description level it suffers, right? So anyhow, so that is kind of this high level EOSC idea. Within the EOSC idea, there is the, I'm not sure, Susanne, Raman, I mean, you have to stop me if I'm kind of, I will try to be short, but there is a lot to say. I'm not sure where we should make a break here. Yeah, but let me try a few minutes more. So a specific aspect, because kind of with respect to the DH. So there is a project called SHOCK, which is SSH Open Cloud, which is a S3 cluster project that is meant to kind of develop the SSH, that means social sciences and humanities part of the EOSC of the cloud. And big research infrastructures are involved there and other partners. I will spare you the kind of the high level goals. Obviously, integration, everything will be wonderfully interconnected. Let's hope so. One aspect of that is, and kind of with respect to these data sets and dissemination, and also it's a bit of a Eigenwerbung. One of the work packages deals with the so-called SSH Open Marketplace, which is meant as a discovery portal for all kinds of resources. Again, and you see the problem, the SSH Open Marketplace versus the EOSC Marketplace. So it needs quite some explanation. These are two different distinct things, although partly overlapping in the scope. Difficult. But the idea of the SSH Open Marketplace is to present tools and services, training materials, workflows, data sets, and publications. So all kinds of research outcomes in the scope of SSH, right? And other than being just another directory, we focus on the contextualization, so-called. So we try to kind of have a lateral links between, let's say, training materials and tools. So if I see a tool, I should also see the training materials that help me to learn how to use that tool and so on. And also the, for example, publications mentioning the tool and these kind of things. So that will be the contextualization, and kind of the quality of the data should be ensured by curation. And we would hope to be able to involve also community. And why I'm talking about this is also because we at the ACDH-CH or at the Academy are responsible for developing this, and this will be has to have the final release by the end of this year. It's already online now, so you can go there for the beta version. It already has quite a sizable amount of data, and I'm happy for hearing feedback from you. Or yeah, so you are welcome to visit that one. Okay, I think I have to. On the Austrian level, there is similar thing which is called the DHA catalog, which would concentrate on the, so it's yet another platform to catalog to provide yet another view on the data. I think I have to jump over this rather quickly, but it is in the context of CLARIAH-AT and the DHA strategy goals of having a kind of, well, we call it repository and Verbund. So have the different repositories with the research data, with the humanities research data, have their consolidation or harmonization among them. That could happen on various levels, and we thought the most doable or feasible way would be at least have a catalog on top of them, so that the researchers can search through all of the data in these repositories and search beyond Dublin core, right? So kind of have a so-called Tieferschließung, so that there will be also a rich description of the content. So so what kind of information I can find in the data that should be also expressed in the metadata and available for the search. Okay, jump over this. It relies on a dedicated ontology or schema, which has been devised in the previous Conde project and is now being refined in the DITA project. I think I will share this presentation and then you can have a look at those. We won't go into detail of this one, but this is just to give you an idea of the DHA ontology. So there is the kind of generic representation of the collection and the objects, and then what kind of annotation information is there about. So what is the, let's say, the object about? That could be relating to persons that are mentioned in the text, for example, or the concepts that are conveyed in the text, and so on. Okay, just let's skip that. We skip the architecture. Okay, and maybe 2 more minutes I would like to spend on a specific example, which is our repository run by the ACDH-CH, the ARCHE, which is a digital archive or repository for the humanities research data since 2017. It has the core trust seal approval, which has been renewed this year, based since 2021. We have used the Fedora-based solution, but we had quite problems, and I won't go into that. If you are interested, I can tell you the sad story. But meanwhile, we have our own solution, technical solution, like a software solution, with which we are very happy, and which is also available on GitHub. And we would be very happy if somebody is interested into reusing it to discuss about that and to give support. Maybe here, so I just want to say here is basically this part, so that the submission or this of data into ARCHE is not a self, I would say, cannot do it by yourself. It's a begleitet, I would say, curated process or accompanied process, where there is a curator on our side and the depositor, and they go into communication, into exchange, and where so the depositor would propose or provide the data that they want to deposit, and the curator would run some automatic checks and also manual anecdotal checks on the quality of the data and kind of is it understandable. And there is quite a long list of rules or criteria that we have that we check for the data before it is submitted and can be archived in the repository. So it's not like I upload through the web form a PDF and then it's there. We rather deal with quite complex, so we have collections where from archaeologists which have like 20,000 objects, and I don't know how many 600 megabytes or up to terabytes of data, which of all kinds of formats. So it can one ingest of a collection can take for half a year or so. So this is a bit of different approach, I think, but so we have rather little collections, but they are really, there is a manual procedure and somebody looked at it and kind of try to ensure that it is really understandable in the long term. Also, yeah, so it's explicit in the metadata about the what is there, and the structure is sensible. There are rules also with respect to the file formats that are accepted, and so on. So this is quite a complex procedure, the submission of data into ARCHE. Yeah, so that's what I said. So there are rules to that. For all the data that is submitted, then there will be a PID issued, and yeah, we have quite, I would say, elaborate documentation on ARCHE with respect to the deposition and how it works. So we are very open about that, and you are welcome to read about it and also give us ask us questions. This is an example of a collection. So there is a generic representation of a of a collection in this case, which can have a deep structure. And one more important thing is to mention here that the data is stored as is, but there is on top of that, there are so-called dissemination services which allow to display the data that is stored in various formats. So if it's an image, it can be displayed as via or accessed via IIIF. If it's a 3D, there is a 3D viewer on top of that. So we are here and we are adding more. So there are kind of flexible dissemination services based on the type of the data that we are storing. Okay, so this is kind of the bigger picture, which I probably have to skip at the moment. Yeah, And I would stop here, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you, Matej, for this interesting
To the force.
to this update. Yes, you covered a lot of things. You covered the international, so the European level, and also the problematic of having too much catalogs. And the question is where to find really the data, up to how to link data, how to bring the data together, how to connect them. And then also the repository now, the ARCHE repository, which is quite nice. I like the idea of the dissemination in different formats. And I think you put there a lot of thought into this. And I'm wondering, was this one of the key elements what you missed in other repositories?
Well, I mean, we had the original ARCHE was based on Fedora, unfortunately Fedora 4, which turned out to be a dead end. So we were a bit unlucky in the choice of the technology at that point in 2017. I think you were kind of able to create dissemination services, the idea of dissemination services also on top of Fedora 4, or Fedora 3 at that matter. The problem was rather deeper. So we had a lot of, so basically our workaround code to Fedora 4 was longer than is our overall code for the solution, for our own solution. So because the Fedora 4 was kind of a Java black box, which we didn't see into and couldn't change, we had to do a lot of workaround to be able to deal with them. There were performance issues and stability and consistency issues, which simply at some point kind of told us, okay, we cannot go there anymore. But yes, so I think I would very much advocate this idea of, okay, there is this archival information package, right, from the OAI's point of view. So the thing that is stored, the bits and kind of the bit streams, and then you can do out of that, you can create a lot of, you can different representations based on the needs, right? So for example, I have a TI stored and on the fly, I can create the HTML representation. Or I have an image and I can do the IIIF, or the 3D viewer for the 3D data and so on. And we are very much convinced about this approach. It's very flexible. We have also established a mechanism where I can very flexibly say, okay, this kind of data or this type of data should have, so the dissemination services, so-called, these are separate services that run, that basically are able to take any data as input and create and transform them. Well, not any kind of type of data, but the kind of data that they understand, and transform them and make a representation of those. So these are dedicated services, which are quite kind of standalone or work on their own, and whatever data you give it, it will try to display it if it understands it. And we have a flexible mechanism within ARCHE to map between the data types and the dissemination services. Sorry for being like.
Okay. That's a great approach.